What is RAM logging, and do you offer it for the B9 platform? I don't recommend Googling RAM logging,
Yeah,
by the way.
you gotta be careful with that one.
Yeah.
So when we say RAM logging, that means there is memory inside of the ECU or any computer you've got that is constantly changing. It's what these programs use to save data, read data. It's all the variables that it takes to run your car that are changing over time. So RPM, it's, routine reads in the sensors coming off the crankshaft, the camshaft. That calculates a number. That's your RPM. It'll save that somewhere in RAM that all of the other programs in the ECU will use to know what the engine speed is. So that RAM is just it's an amount of memory inside the computer, and normally you cannot access it all. You'll get a very slim window that the OEMs will provide, and those are the normal OBD PID groups. So you'll get a very basic subset of what they determine is what they need for their diagnostic stuff typically. When we say we have RAM logging, that means we have the ability to read everything in the ECU and get all of the parameters out of the ECU at any time. So we can go way more in depth on the amount of data we can get. Usually, we can get it a lot faster than the OBD routines as well.
Yeah, it's going direct to the
So
source.
it's just a much more advanced, much more complete data acquisition method that we can employ. So let me see if there's a couple of follow-ups. Difference between OBD logging. Again, it's very platform specific too. Some of these, I want to say the B8's a good example. There's a pretty big difference. We'll have maybe, I want to say 50-ish parameters on OBD logging typically. We'll get about 20 teens to 20 hertz, depending on how you're doing it. I can RAM log about 150 variables. I think that's my normal group at about between 50 and 100 hertz. So it's orders of magnitude more data we can get out on some of these platforms. And it's in a much, there's also another factor in it that gets a little geeky, but when you are logging with OBD, a lot of times you have to send all these different commands to the ECU, like, hey, I want this value, this value, this value, this value, it gets back, and then you want the next set, you get that back, and you get the next set, you get that back. When we do our RAM logging, it's much more an accurate snapshot in time. So we set up our logger internally. We do all the heavy lifting is done inside the ECU. And we just say, hey, give me the latest information. All the information comes back at once. So it's a snapshot of all the variables tied together exactly at the same point in time. So that really helps with data acquisition because everything's moving potentially very quickly. And you've got all these intertwined variables that are dependent on each other. And if you're capturing them out of sync, it's a little trickier to kind of suss out the nuances in the data. So there's a bunch of advantages, and we're working on bringing it to a whole lot more platforms as our normal logging method. Just as we roll out more and more, from ECUs to transmissions to everything. We've got lots of data we can lean on.